got a ton of pasta. We even still have some tortellini left over. Don't get me started on the garlic bread. I love the garlic bread. So I'm gonna keep doing crowd work until the live stream starts.
It's up.
Oh, it's up? Okay,
Yep.
good. I'm terrible at crowd work. Okay, so everyone, welcome, of course, to the 2024 ARF National Conference. Yes, so glad to have all of you here. It's really great to see you all here. We've all put a lot of work in this year to do various things, to get various accomplishments done. And today we'll have time to talk about a few of them. We'll have time to explain some of our future plans. And we're going to have a lot of other conversations about things to do. We're even having awards later for some of the efforts that have been put in here. So I would now like to welcome to the floor Stefan Nielsen, who is going to deliver us an invocation. Of course, there's the schedule, but you all have it now. But here we go. Welcome to the stage, Stefan Nielsen. Our Rackham representative, newly elected, got like more than 500 votes. I might be making that up. I'm pretty sure it's true. You're nodding. But he got almost 1,000 votes on our platform. So welcome up here.
Oh, my switched over here. Never mind. Thank you all for being here. Great to see all of you. My name is Stefan Nielsen, and I serve as the outreach officer for the ARF. A few days ago, at our weekly Monday meeting, I volunteered to give the invocation for our conference. What I quickly noticed was a 10-minute time slot Gabe wanted me to fill. For the sake of keeping you all awake and not boring you further into your seats, I will do my best to keep this invocation interesting and hopefully engaging. So sorry, Gabe, if this runs a few minutes short. I'll let you know now that I don't think anyone here will be complaining. To start things off, I want to acknowledge the University of Michigan for graciously allowing us to host our convention in this beautiful space. Coincidentally, for a greatly discounted price after we were kicked out of our old room. You can try the elevators if you like, but you won't have any luck. I'd like to thank our speakers for today, some of whom have traveled a few miles, others a few thousand, such as our Cascadian affiliate, Joshua Leno. Your commitment to the organization is certainly without compare. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Yes.
Fantastic. Next, it only seems fitting to acknowledge the attendance of one of our special guests. Mr. John Quinn is a retired lawyer and member of both Democrats for Life of America and a board member of Michigan Democrats for Life. I hope I got those both right.
Yes, except we no longer have a board, so I'm not a board member.
Okay, excellent, is your board member. He's graciously chosen to attend our convention, so we better keep this interesting. Now to the entertaining portion of the speech. This part will require some consideration, as I'll be asking for your response to several questions. As an easy beginner, I'd like to ask who all of you here is disgruntled with the way American politics are going. Feel free to raise your hands. Okay, that's quite a few hands. All right, next question. Who here doesn't feel like they fit within the political establishment? Okay, quite a few hands. Now for a few more pragmatic points. How many of you want to see your fellow Americans succeed and be prosperous? Once again, good number of hands. Okay. What about preserving the beautiful features of our great nation while bringing back manufacturing jobs? Okay. Even better, would you like to see a decrease in political polarization and the damage being done to our society? For the many of you who raise your hands to these questions, which virtually almost all of you do for every single question, there's a reason you all are here. I'm fairly confident I can speak for many, if not all of us, in that we are tired of the path our country has taken. We see and hear the shouts of division and the bickering of the extremes of both sides. Congress constantly becomes deadlocked over minutiae issues. Our Supreme Court is under scrutiny unlike that in recent history. In the presidency, well, everyone is petrified in whichever direction it will go in November. I make jokes at this podium not to disregard the state of our nation, but to make it more palatable to talk about. Because we need to talk about it. Better yet, we need to work on a solution. Now, I would like to end my spiel with a short prayer and a quote. But first, the prayer. Almighty God, King of the universe and creator of all, please bless us with the qualities you so admire and desire us to have: wisdom, foresight, empathy, grace, and determination. Help us work with one another to understand each other, create friendships, solve our problems, and persevere beyond the hardships in our lives. Grant us the ability to see beyond our differences, uniting with one another for the sake of those we seek to help. Make us aware of those issues we can fix for the betterment of ourselves, our communities, our nation, and our world. Allow for our meeting here to foster the changes we want to see by our own hands and those of others seeking to promote the common good. Amen. Next to our quote comes from a famous sage. His name was Hillel. He lived much of his life under suppression, under Roman rule about 2,000 years ago in Israel. His words, at least in my mind, and I hope you all agree, ring as true today as they did during his own time. And of course the quote is, "If I am not for myself, who is for me? And if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?" With that, I'd like to call our annual conference to order. Thank you all for being here, and let's get things rolling.
Fantastic job. Now, of course, following that, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And you forsook the opportunity to wrap the gavel. We'll have one later, hopefully. But everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag's over there. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I realize now that half the pledge actually got cut off, but we all knew it, so congratulations to everybody. That's good. So of course, I wanted to welcome you all. Thank you very much, Stefan, for that invocation. I really liked the way it turned out. I remember you had me read an earlier draft. I don't think I read it in time to get the quote from the sage, but I really enjoyed that as well. I really enjoyed that. So thank you very much for that beautiful invocation. And I hope those prayerful words will continue to guide us as we brainstorm and as we go throughout the rest of this year. I have this quote here, and I'll expand upon it a little bit more, from U.S. Representative Ignatius Donnelly. Now, Ignatius Donnelly is mostly known in the modern times, unfortunately, for his various conspiracies regarding the lost city of Atlantis. Now, however, he was a notable activist during the progressive era in the 1900s. He was seeing the systematic inequalities of capitalism and seeing how they didn't really fit into a Christian framework. And this is something that bothered him greatly. So he says, "From the same prolific womb of government injustice, we breed the two great classes, tramps and millionaires." And this is something that bothered him greatly as a religious man from Wisconsin. But before we delve into all the minutiae of ideology and history, let me first go into welcome all of you here, but also, who am I? Why am I here? That's another quote from Admiral James Stockdale, who was Ross Perot's running mate in '92, and said that at the beginning of a debate and never recovered because he was old, so people thought it was intentional. What I have to say is this: who are we? Why are we here? That's the quote that I would like to build on. We at the ARF are an organization like no other. We are not funded by any larger organization like some other student groups of many political affiliations on campus. We did not come from the top. We came from below. We were a spontaneous movement founded in the year 2020 during the midst of the pandemic. And we didn't have our first meeting until 2021. Stefan over here was actually the person who took the notes at the first meeting. And I tell you, we had 3 people there in person, 5 people there on Zoom, and 4 more people on Discord, which really showed the level that the organization was at that point. Fortunately, as we continued to work through activism, getting involved in student governments, getting involved in local affairs, getting involved in local politics, and getting involved even in some factory disputes, we have been able to grow our messaging of ground-up populism to many places in the country. Our influence now expands as far away to San Francisco on the West Coast, and on the other coast, we actually just started a plant on Long Island. So we are now from sea to shining sea, folks. We've finally done it. But most of our organization, as you know, is centered here in the industrial Midwest. The industrial Midwest is the heartland of the United States. It is a place that I grew up and have a deep love and affinity for. I am not that old. But there was a time, I remember, when there were still more factories that hummed with industry than there are now. Through the course of my life, when I was young, I saw the mass factory closures of the 2007 financial crisis. Cities in the Tri-City area never recovered. Detroit never recovered, it was already down. And several more of our great cities, such as Battle Creek, were forced to accept unfair union contracts that were used by the corporate kleptocrats to destroy their American dream. I found this all to be very bad. As somebody who was, before that, more conservative on economic policy, which I was at one point, I've always been a good churchgoer, though, that's never changed. I was concerned by the plight that international capitalism had created. I was worried that the workers in the American heartland were losing their favor to people that didn't really love our country. I was so concerned with this rise of anti-Americanism among young people, and then looking to radical solutions such as Marxism for answers. I resolved to myself, and Stefan agreed with me, that we must find a way that recognizes the inherent beauty of patriotism, but also recognizes that capitalism has some faults and can be better utilized to serve the masses, especially the American people who have worked so hard. I mean, many of you obviously grew up in the Midwest as well. I'm sure some of you have parents or grandparents who worked in industrial factories back when there were some. My grandfather, for example, worked at GM. My father was in the UAW for many years. His father was in the Air Traffic Controllers Union. We have a lot of that in our family, and there are not a lot of unions anymore. It kind of sucks. So before I go any further into that, I do want to introduce myself. I just said all that without being formally introduced. I'm sorry. My name is Gabriel Irvin. I am the chairman of the ARF, so that's fun. I do a lot of work around here to keep the organization afloat. I'm wearing the same exact tie now as I am in that picture, which is kind of weird, but I don't think I've retied it since then either. That was last year. This was last year's convention. That we actually held one more floor upstairs in the Kessler room. Now, Stefan, you mentioned briefly that we got kicked out of our old room. And we did get kicked out of our old room. And I was trying to figure out why. And they said, oh, well, you know, the elevators don't work. And so we think it would be difficult for you and all this stuff. And I was thinking, they just don't want to bring the chairs upstairs, do they?
There's another group up there now.
I know, they have it until like 3 though. We started at noon, so I guess they'd have to come in early. I don't know how anything works up there, quite frankly. But
this is a nice space.
it is a nice space. This is a nicer space though. We got high ceilings here. We got chandeliers. How many rooms have chandeliers? How many have chandeliers at home? Hopefully not that many, that'd be kind of strange. But anyways, back to the topic at hand. My name is Gabriel Irvin. I'm the chairman of the ARF with Stefan Nielsen and some others. We founded the ARF in 2021. Since then, we have 500 supporters nationwide. We have thousands locally, apparently, our recent election results withstanding. We have a decent amount of grassroots support. I ran in the Beverly Hills Village Council election. I know, very exciting. Campaigning on the issues of chickens and dam maintenance. And I managed to get 13% of the vote. I was happy about that. 13% of the Beverly Hills residents voted for me, which was great because everyone else who I was running against had either served on the council or was currently on the council. And one of them spent $40,000 on a village council campaign. I spent $400. It was in no position, but I got to attend the debates. I got to do a lot of fun stuff. The debates were held in a senior center and not even broadcast on public access, but I still enjoyed myself. So that's me, Gabriel Irvin, the august, standing there. I was not serious on that. You didn't laugh, so I was assuming you thought I was being serious. So it's not that conceited. So I'd now like to move on. Of course, we have Alex Ducan here, who is my wonderful secretary right now. He's in charge of maintaining all the things that I don't know how to do, like technology, email lists, and I don't know. Speaking foreign languages. This man over here speaks like 8 foreign languages. I don't even know how he does it. And they're not like related ones either. It's like Chinese and German. I don't know what he's planning, but I'm glad that I'm his friend. So I'd like to welcome him. He's going to go over some of the accomplishments we've made this year. Unfortunately, our social media director who was supposed to be here, he's under the weather today. He got a little sick. And that's not like code for anything. He's not like hungover. He's actually sick. think. So, of course, Alex, I'd like to welcome you now to the stage. We're going to go over some of the wonderful things we've had this year. We had a lot of great opportunities, and now we get to see them all collected as one.
Thank you very much. Alrighty, I regret to have to remove Gabe's face from the screen, but
That's the quote.
That's the quote. That's the quote. He makes us finally. That she didn't even.
That meant to be a little later, actually.
All right. This is me. I'm Alex Dukin. I am the Secretary General, and Gabe did a wonderful job introducing me. I really appreciate that. It was very kind. My foreign language skills will not be helping me during the speech, but if anybody needs a translation, you know where to ask. Thank you to everyone who's spoken before me, to Stefan for the great invocation, and let's get into the optimistic stuff, what we've done this year, because we have done a lot. And honestly, I'm excited to be able to announce this. I'm glad Gabe gave me this opportunity because I think that with everything we've done, we have a lot to be fired up about from the past and even more to look forward to in the future. So let's hop into it. Oh, yes, the other slides. Do you have those?
Yes, they're up on
This one.
Yes.
Boom. Alrighty. See, technology. Everybody works together on it. So yes, like we said, Wade Velke, my accomplished assistant and good friend here, will not be joining me, so I will be spieling on my own. November 6, 2023, Peter Sansky came through, and that was an amazing time. We have some people in the room right now who are affiliated with Peter Sansky and his campaign. Aaron waved, and I appreciate that. Peter Sansky is the presidential candidate for the American Solidarity Party, if you're not familiar. He ran a campaign, is still running a campaign for the presidential bid. And honestly, he does a much better job representing the ideals of the American people than our current two plutocrats. So it was a wonderful time to have him come through, and he gave a wonderful speech that focused very heavily on the fact that politics is not a game of hearts, it's a game of minds. It's what we want the country to look like. And in some regards, it is a game of hearts. We need people to be supportive, to be riled up, right? But on some level, hearing Peter Sansky talk, it was very philosophical, it was very directed, and that was so powerful for one of our earlier big things to do. And so here's some pictures. We have Gabe with the celebrity entourage. We have Sansky speaking, and one picture of the back of my head, which not sure how that made it in the slides, but you see I usually wear a hat, so disguised. All right, November 2023, the University of Michigan fall special elections. And this did go very well. We got a lot of people elected. I mean, we talked about, Stefan is our Rackham person in charge, so that is
Aaron is too.
Say it?
Aaron is too.
Aaron is also Rackham in charge, and that is great to hear. We have many more people. Patrizio is on CSG. Tyler is also on CSG?
Technically, yes.
Technically, yes. Technically, it's not for me. We have people all across the University of Michigan working on building a better political culture for the university. And I love it. I love to see what we are able to do. We have bills moving through the central student government right now that are going to massively reshape the university and set a precedent for other universities, because the University of Michigan has a lot of potential, and something else that matters a little more than potential, a lot of money. And so building the culture at University of Michigan away from the sort of hegemonic culture surrounding Big Ten universities, surrounding Ivies, public Ivies, all of these university leagues that kind of self-solidify around a certain idea. Building some multipolarity within the University of Michigan, that is our task. And I'm loving to see how it's going. Wade, with his election, Wade did get elected as UFPD oversight. No, he didn't. That's very unfortunate, but he will next time. I'm sure.
About 2,000 votes, yeah.
2,000 votes, yeah. So that's still a very solid margin. And I believe he was running against an incumbent, so I don't blame him. And Gabe ran for LSA CSG representative. We had other people doing that. Honestly, we had a massive party ballot. It was almost 30 people. Patrizio, what's up?
And I'm happy to announce that we are in a coalition officially.
Oh, yes?
For the next elections, and I'm gonna have more information coming about that very soon.
So keep your ears peeled.
But just letting you know, the best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. I think that's the takeaway. I think that's the takeaway here for sure, is that of all of this good stuff, it's only getting better. All right, what's up next? So some pictures again. Johnny's ballot. We will be able to hear Johnny speak later on. I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a great speech from our representative to the engineering body. A postering commission up in the top right. All of the friends postering in the dark, cold days of the cold snap from recent. We have some Cascadians here, but Michigan was freezing last week. Negative 20 C, negative something Fahrenheit. It was something else. And our Michigan representatives and friends, lovely. January 2024, CSG AR 13032 fails. Yes, this was. So we have a variety of opinions on these sorts of ideas, but one thing I think we can all agree on is that student money, so your college tuition and my college tuition, shouldn't be going to give free safe ride taxi transit to people looking to get an abortion. That seems a bit strange. I mean, it's not that we don't fully, believe in keeping people safe, but this is not the way to do it. We can do better than that. We can protect people and protect life and really look to help people in whatever state they're in without sacrificing student dollars for frankly frivolous ends. Tyler, what's up?
I spoke to some of the authors of this bill, and this bill in this current form right here, none of that will be in any future bills like that.
That's lovely. That really is powerful. Let's get another. So massive thanks to our CSG representatives and CSG adjacents for making that happen. It is really important that we can, again, change the culture, change the economic policy, change the way the University of Michigan looks at these social issues, because they are broad, multifaceted, and we need to be taking into account the full student body of opinions. And even while this bill was getting voted on, it was not hugely popular, even among those writing it. So suffice it to say, great work from our party members here. And I believe we have pictures of this. Nope, just another one. All right, increased connections with major political leaders and candidates. Sonsky, that was an amazing thing, and that's not all that we had. We are currently in communications with RFK Jr.'s campaign, and that is a polarizing figure, but if all goes well, we will be able to see him either in Detroit or maybe, if we're really looking forward, up on University of Michigan's campus someday. So RFK Jr. is an amazing person to talk to. We will really be keeping that connection going. And he's not the only one. We have others in politics. We have other speakers today even who are currently working on political organizations and on changing the economic and social culture of America, because really that's what we're here to do. The ARF wants to build those connections because as Gabe, yes, Gabe, what's up?
I've got one more thing too.
Oh, yes.
We have gotten some soft confirmations from Melissa Slotkin's Senate campaign. She'd be interested in dropping by. And then I have some other people that are reaching out to some of the Republicans on that side to see if they would come here and speak. Obviously, it's be a little bit more fruitful for Slotkin to come and speak at the University of Michigan.
Yes.
It would be for a potential Republican to come speak at the University of Michigan.
Right.
But we're still going to try. We're still going to try.
I look forward to whatever we can get good done, because honestly, I think bringing these politicians here, establishing a line of communication, we can really do some very powerful things, not just for the University of Michigan, but across the United States. And yes, I mean, Gabe, when I was first joining the organization, back when I got to the UMich campus, Gabe introduced the ARF to me as America's premier non-political political organization. And I think that really speaks to the kind of culture we're trying to foster here. I mean, working with Sonsky, Kennedy, Slotkin, Republicans across the state, Republicans across the nation, Democrats across the nation. We want to affect change beyond the current dialogue. And I think we're doing a wonderful job of that. November 16th of December, ARF winter break dinner. This was lovely. I was there. You could see me hanging out in the back in a very blurry photo. This was held in the Berkeley Country Club. It was very nice. Thank Gabe for organizing that, putting it all together, and getting us such a nice meal, which Gabe even paid for said meal. So very, very, very nice. It was wonderful. Thank you. And we can see a lot of familiar faces who were there currently in the room, so thank you all for coming back and sticking around. That is wonderful. And I look forward to more events like this because the ARF isn't just a stuffy political organization. I mean, you can see what the Democrats do, you can see what the Republicans do, and it just looks boring. Here we are having a good time. So I'm very glad we were able to put all that together. A little less to say about that because it was just a fun time. October 2023, Western Michigan ARF trip, another very, very fun time. We went out to Lowell, we had a wonderful time. We went to public land, walked around, saw some nature, and just for context, if there's anyone in the room who's a firearms enthusiast, our man in the picture standing next to Gabe Carson is highly educated about firearms and gave us all a wonderful lesson in use and proper handling, because it's not something you really get in an arm, suffice it to say. And I mean, beyond that, just going out to the western side of the state, Michigan is beautiful, honestly. I was born and raised here, I'll say it firsthand. Every part of Michigan has its own beauty, and it was really nice to see that part of the state in its glory, walking around on public land, even though it was a disastrously rainy day. I mean, the whole time we're out there, we're playing around, and it's just pouring. But we make the best of it. Perseverance is all that one needs. And I believe that brings me to the end of my spiel. That is our highlight reel from the year, and I believe Gabe.
We got one more thing. It's interesting.
He's got some new ideas,
Well, of
so
course.
I'll hand it off.
Of course, you can stay up here and go back to some other things. Every one of these pictures has a little bit of a story behind them, and I will be sharing a little bit about that. So this one is more straightforward. The rest have funnier context. We're very glad to have Peter Sonsky. Actually, there's a funny context behind this one. As Alex knows, I was 30 minutes late for my own event.
That is true.
I got stuck asking a question to a professor after class, and his response lasted 30 minutes. So that was, kept trying to walk away, no. So I was there late, so I thank you, Alex, for putting that together at the beginning and maintaining order so everything didn't fall apart. We're very lucky to have him here. It was great. I wanted to point out that out of all the people in that picture, I would like to note that those three men between them have a combined 25 children, which was just a really interesting fact that I learned. I was like, what jobs do these people have? And apparently the jobs have, Peter Sonsky is a museum docent, so apparently that pays the big bucks. The guy over there is a Baptist minister. I guess that pays well. And then Howard is a university professor. So I knew that one paid well. The other two I didn't know so much about. Of course, at the back of Alex's head. I don't know if there's a funny story behind that. Alex, is there? Don't worry. Of course, the next one we have, those are mostly just posters. That picture, Patrick, you remember that picture? That was taken after the meeting ran about an hour and a half long because we were electing a new party chairman. And it lasted 6.5, 7 rounds of voting. We adopted a rule that sounded really great in theory, but was not very practicable. It was whoever was to be the party chairman for our CSG elections had to get 66% of the vote, 66.7 or whatever, 2/3, 66.7% of the vote. We kept getting like people to 50, we kept getting people to 55, we got like one person got to 60 the whole time. Stefan came in at like the last moment, was the showstopper. He got 45 on the second to last ballot. And then finally we decided, Patrick, you just do it. We're all very tired. And that was a very happy decision. It was a very happy decision. We were all very happy to do it. It was a great compromise we had. And that's why I look like I'm half asleep. And everyone else looks incredibly relieved, except Tyler, who never sleeps to begin with, and thus was in chipper moods. And I don't know, Peter's not here, but he does look like he's planning something devious in that picture. He has all the bottom half of his face covered.
Always.
Of course, here. That stuff, we already added onto that one. This one. So, I don't know, everybody knows anything that happened there. I mean, nothing really super interesting. We had dinner. I mean, that's basically the only thing that we had. I will say this, though, is that because we posted this picture somewhere around the time that the Israel-Palestine conflict was big, some people DM'd me because the country club's only Hanukkah decoration happened to be behind our table. And so I got like, it's the only one in the whole country club. I walked around afterwards. I was like, is this the only one? Is this the only one? Like, and everywhere else just crosses, stockings, crosses, and it was right there. And then I got like 8 DMs from people at our university, like, how could you do this? You know, this is the worst thing anyone's ever done. And I'm thinking, I didn't even know it was there.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And so that was a little funny context behind that. I don't know how that happened, but you know, and of course you notice they used a flower pot to cover a painting. I don't know what a painting is, but you know.
Just our luck.
And of course, that's the funny story behind that one. Also, Ethan left early to go watch a Lions game. It works apparently. We've got this far.
Yeah.
Unless it was the Dallas game.
No,
Okay.
that one was the Minnesota game.
Okay,
No,
good.
it was the Broncos game.
Oh, I wanted to make sure it was.
Broncos game.
If it was the Dallas game, I would have said you jinxed it.
Uh,
Of course, this wonderful picture we got from our Western Michigan trip. We had obviously, as Alex mentioned, we have Carson there, who is our resident firearms enthusiast. Something interesting is when we walked onto the state land, it had this sign in front of it that said like, don't use whatever caliber bullets, don't blow up stuff. It had all these rules, but you couldn't read all the rules because the sign was riddled with bullet holes. They were just, you couldn't read anything. It was like, do not, and then bang, 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 just a ton of holes in the sign. And we were like, well, I'm not really sure what the rules are here.
If you didn't know you were in the Lowell.
And if you didn't know you were in one, that's a good point. And so, last thing I'd like to say about this particular slide before we move on is that restaurant right there in Lowell, Michigan, it's called Big Boiler. There's a giant boiler in the center of the restaurant, so everything's quite straightforward. After being in Ann Arbor so long, I was shocked. We had sandwiches that were less than $20. It was great. They had like a $6 sandwich, and I was like expecting it to be like this big. It was this big. It was like the size of the plate that was like overflowing, and I was like, wow. Yeah.
I haven't seen one of those in 10 years.
You gotta go low. You gotta
$40 here.
Yeah, $40 plus the mandatory 25, 45, or 80% tip that is offered at the little turnaround screen. You've ever been out to get a $1 coffee? You're like, it's like tip options: $2, $8, $20. Do your bosses not pay you? What's going on? So those are the context behind those wonderful pictures. Any interesting stories you'd like to add to these?
I think you've covered it.
I think
That was very good.
and so thank you all very much for those who came and for indulging these interesting memories and accomplishments that we've made throughout the year. Time to switch it. We can look professional. We can use the image while we change it. That makes it look like it's all part of the same PowerPoint.
And then we'll put the slideshow on yesterday.
Yes, no, we're not going to put yesterday's slideshow on. Now we have our wonderful friend coming from hailing from the Pacific Northwest, which rains a lot. It does not snow a lot. You should have seen him. It looks like he saw snow for the first time last night. His friend over there was repeatedly in mortal peril as he wanted to pick up the icy snow and make a snowball with it and throw it at someone. I'm 100% sure we might have broken a window at the CCPC. But we'll just blame that on what happened at the Ruth Haven, so we can cover that. So I'd like to welcome him to the stage right now. Thank you very much for being here.
Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here, this is my first speech in front of an audience of this size, and I am compelled to live up to the standard of the previous speeches given, which will be challenging, but unfortunately, I don't think I'll be covering anything quite as interesting. I'm here to talk about two specific things. First, appealing to Pacific states, which is something the era eventually, inevitably, as it has been trying to do, needs to do more of. And secondly, appealing online, getting more online growth off the ground. That's what I want to leave this speech with, because it is extraordinarily important to figure out how somebody as far off as Michigan can resonate with, reason with, and reach across the aisle to somebody from California, from Oregon, from Washington. And these are people with completely different cultures, different ideologies generally, and they need to be able to be brought into the Big Tent. Reaching across the aisle in this way is the most important thing which an organization can achieve, because this necessity underlies every single issue within the United States. The ability of Americans to get along internally is the most important thing to achieve for the progression of the entire system. I will start off, though, with the points of online action. Presently, the online political community is completely dead. We must wait to expand. Not in the sense that the ERF shouldn't until then stagnate its growth, or should stagnate its growth, or not attempt to gain any people from that region, but to be ready for when the next election cycle does come, when people are more politically active, to jump on the bandwagon. You will be able to skyrocket in growth once political activity is much, much higher than it is presently. When political action takes off, hop on that and attempt to grow exponentially, if you will. Growth shouldn't be delayed, as I've said, and I'm happy to see it hasn't with the ARF. Ways to assure growth now and extreme growth in the near future, when action accelerates, will be to partner primarily with social media pages. Not just any social media pages. This early on in organization development, there, as far as I can see, are not quite enough resources, to make very large partners. But growth with the platforms organized on by youth is what needs to especially happen. Instagram, even fringier sites like Telegram can be really, really useful. Partner with big online pages, not pages that are too big, but ones that have a few thousand followers that you can reach out to and just say, from the grassroots, from anybody here, sorry, I didn't mean mine, from anybody here, hey, can we get promoted by your page? A lot of the time they'll do it for free. That's how I got my start on social media. And it's really, really useful for getting followers, just from the grassroots. You don't need to engage in any like financial obligations to any pages. Just say, hey, can you help us out with this? There are a few pages I can talk with Mr. Irvin after on specifics, but that is extremely important. Partnering with those pages is done just by reaching out to them. This will maximize not only the goal of Big Tent, because you can incorporate all of the followers which take interest in your organization, you can maximize your own organization power by being positively perceived by smaller influencers, which can then gain positive attention from larger pages. By organizing at public rallies and committing actions there, gaining attention through public rallies, it will be easier, of course, to gain news coverage, but that isn't necessarily something the ERF wants a lot of right now, especially from larger news sites, because you will attract larger members, but you'll also attract much, much more criticism. The organization is smaller. It's still delicate in a way, and it's important to be cautious. Unless the administration wants to say, which they can, if they want to do that, any publicity is good publicity, which is a feasible statement, it will be best to maintain on the smaller sides, on the outskirts, and there's not getting too much attention from them. Another method will be optimizing your results on search engines. So one method, the best method that you can do this by, is by having sites of other organizations promote your own. Say, hey, can you promote our site link on your website? This will make it so that Google or other search engines will see these search results, and they'll say, hey, this website's popular on this other website. We should up them in search engines. So that's one really, really good method you can use for that. Now, as far as not online outreach in the Pacific Northwest goes, or in the Northwest, or in the West in general, the Western states, Washington, Oregon, California, they have diverse needs that do need to be addressed. In Washington, lower taxes, homelessness, public safety, political polarization, these are the things that plague that state. Corruption, lack of good education systems that are behind. And this can be related to red states here as well. Environmentalism is also probably the first and foremost thing that any organizations in the Northwest will be concerned about, especially. Reaching out to citizens, reaching out to organizations there from the grassroots up. Doesn't even have to be from the administration, doesn't have to be by official ARF pages. It can be from anyone in the room, anyone here. In Oregon, polarization, energy, the PG&E rose prices 18% this year. Meanwhile, blackouts are everywhere in Oregon, absolutely everywhere. Flooding as well, big issue. These things will be great to appeal to citizens in this specific state, and in California, small farmers will most likely be the biggest bet you can get, because college students in California can be quite unready to compromise. And so smaller farmers will be the biggest, best bet you can go with for an organization like this right now. So reaching out to small farm organizations, unions for promotion, to ask for partnerships, for alliances. This is what matters. This is what's important when reaching out to Californians. That's all I have for today. So thank you.
Of course, in his absence, our social media chair is on, so I'm at longer to pause just a few questions. As far as social media platforms go, which one do you see being the most active for the upcoming election cycle? Because we've expanded on Instagram, we've expanded on, we don't have to tell everything about that. Steve over there actually does manage the TikTok. I don't know how it works, so Steve, maybe you'll have a few questions about that, and it'll be better worded than mine. But on behalf of Wade, who's not here, I would ask, what social media platform, like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, I'm sure there's more than that, do you think will be the most crucial towards young people, and then towards potentially era-aligned young people, if there is a difference in those two platforms in the upcoming 2024 election?
I think you can maximize people that you can reach out to by TikTok, but I don't know that you can maximize engagement that way. I think you can maximize engagement by Instagram, especially if you're, as it is, your primary audience you want to reach out to are college students. You won't want to reach out to Facebook or, you know, any other of the sites used by older people. Instagram is really the one you want to press on engaging in activity with, especially since those are the pages that you'll be able to grow most partnerships with. I don't think TikTok will be the best platform to use, though it is worth a try, of course.
So would you say, with, as far as engagement goes, Instagram, as far as reach goes, TikTok, and as far as, I don't know where Twitter would fit in that. Obviously, Facebook is for like Uber. Like, so we need to raise money. Obviously, Facebook would be the place to do that.
Yeah.
But you know, is that how you characterize it, or do you think that the engagement on Instagram is probably should be the primary focus?
The engagement on Instagram is the primary focus because you want people involved in the organization. Because the people that get involved are going to be people that grow it. And that's what I'd say.
And Alex just texted me a question, so I'll ask this question. Alex C over there just texted me about the usefulness or potential non-usefulness of the platform ignominiously known as Reddit. And I love the collective groan that arose from the audience. I'm not sure, you may not know this, but the era has somewhat of a storied history with the platform of Reddit. Some things have been said, so actually nice things have been said, few and far between. But what do you think the usefulness of Reddit will be in the upcoming election? Do people take that seriously as a news platform anymore? Do people, you're shaking your head, right? Do people ignore it altogether? Is there a certain demographic that can be salvaged from the quagmire of Reddit? Or is it just a lost cause where you say, if somebody wants to focus on their fine, or we just pack it up and move it on?
I mean, it's a site that you can go on and say, hey, there's this organization that you'd like to advertise on a specific page or whatever, and you can do that, but I don't know that the people you gain from that engagement would be promising.
Okay, very good. So it's one thing to like grow some kind of online presence and get followers and get people interested. How are you able to retain that, you know, keep people from maybe leaving or losing interest, make sure people, you know, show up in real life and do, you know, events?
Keep politically active. That's all you can do. You have to keep politically active. Keep doing things. Don't let any period of inactivity ever happen. You will lose attention. But if you keep accelerating activity, if you keep moving forward, you'll retain people. They'll stay. They'll stay for the show.
What are some ways we can ensure safety on our social media platforms?
For
example, doxing.
Well, if you're opening chats, good moderation is the only thing you can really do to stop that. So it depends on like the platform you're going for. If you're going for platforms like Discord to open up chats on, like make sure members don't get doxed on there, making sure you have good privacy policies. So don't allow members to give up personal information on the chats you have active. Ensure moderators are always active around the clock. It's in some way, or if you don't have those resources, which is probably not likely, than bots. Bots are generally like accessible on all platforms.
FYI, I do run the Young Americans for Solidarity Discord server, which is now tied in with the ARF through the Peter Sonsky speech. So let me know if you're interested.
Steve, do you have any questions from the TikTok?
I mean, he already explained everything. I mean, TikTok's more of a quantity than quality, I would say. It's good for getting views, but a matter of like, it's a lower quality, I would say, than Instagram or like YouTube or anything like that in terms of like engagement or like how it likes, just the way it runs.
Yeah, that's all.
We are running just a little bit ahead of schedule, much less ahead of schedule than I thought we would be, which is good. Of course, I'd like to use this opportunity before we go to a little intermission so you can finish off the food there in the corner. And Aaron, I will ask about a separate plate of cookies when they stop by again. I'm sure they'll do it for us. I want one too. And I'm now using you as a catalyst to fulfill my desire for another plate of cookies, so I apologize deeply. But you're the first person in my eyesight. I will say this, I would like to now answer any questions that have been generated. He answered his own questions, which is good. But if you have any questions to me or anything about the ARF, because we have, obviously we have people who've been here before, we have people who've never been here before, I'd be glad to answer those questions at this moment. We have a little bit of a time before the intermission, and during the intermission, we have our wonderful pro bono photographer, Nick over there, who takes the photos, and I'm bothering me right now, he's trying to take one. But he has so graciously done this the whole year for free. The photos have been really great. We've gotten them used before in various places. He's also the staff photographer for one of the school's newspapers. He's really delivered a lot of good content for us throughout the year. And so during the intermission, we'll be posing for some wonderful photos to be used on social media or something. So there we go. We're thinking ahead on that. We're showing people who do stuff in real life. But of course, I would now like to take just these few minutes to answer any questions that people have had about anything in the proceeding, about anything about the ARF, about anything we've done in the past, or even about the plans in the future, because I said we have some plans to bring some candidates in here and there of varying political shapes and sizes, which can be confusing sometimes when we're always slapping our label on it. So I'd be happy to answer any of those questions right now if any of them have been generated. Alex.
I was wondering if you ever been in contact with any UAW presidents, local union presidents to come and speak or anything
So
like that?
I have a good story with this. So when I was running for Beverly Hills Village Council, I went and visited a union hall in North Oakland County because they were having a Democratic Party meeting there. They had a lot of union guys there.
What union was it?
It was the UAW.
Okay.
But I think they co-used the building with a few, I think with the Journeyman's Union, if I remember correctly. And I actually met someone there. And I talked to her, she liked the speech that I gave to the thing, and I wrote her phone number down incorrectly. So I wrote the phone number down, and then I texted the number, and it was like, it just didn't go through. It was it's the same color as when you text somebody as an Android. It was just kind of green, and then I was unable to get it. So next time I'm ever in Northern Oakland County, and I know there is a statewide Democratic Party committee meeting going on, there probably will be this year. I mean, there weren't a lot last year, but there are this year that are open to the public. I will probably get the opportunity to do that again. Hopefully we will be able to establish some ties with the UAW. On that front, at the same time, Carson is not here today because of the issue we're about to talk about. Is talking about getting involved with the Journeyman's Union. He works at the Trane Technologies plant in Western Michigan. And his bosses have recently been doing something called mandatory overtime, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's mandatory overtime. And so he's been stuck working these 11, 12-hour days, even on weekends, getting single overtime pay when it should be double overtime pay. You're not allowed to reject it or else you get fired. His bosses have been putting a lot of pressure on the workers there not to unionize. They want to unionize, and we've helped putting them in contact with the Journeyman's Union to get them affiliated with the Trane Technologies plant. Unfortunately, Michigan His laws have been a little back and forth on that due to the kind of pendulum nature of our governor office in the last 20, 30, even 40 years. So the union thing's been back and forth. We're hoping to get more involved with unions. Carson will most likely be the catalyst for that if they get associated with the Journeyman's Union. And then we can work to get more involved with the UAW, which is something I really want to do. I hope that answers the.
So you also got like the the skilled trades as well, like the local 25, local 58. Because like in terms of ideology in general, this would be like the embodiment of political, this would be like the embodiment of the political ideas of the vast majority of the skilled trades union. You know what I mean? 'Cause I grew up in that crowd. You know what I mean? So
I will definitely.
We could get a lot of support from them.
I will talk to you more about that. We'll have the Alex in front of you talk a little bit more to you about that because I'm bad at remembering things, but I remember most of the stuff. So that's really good, actually. I'd be really interested in that. We even had some outreach to the unions on campus, which are differently politically minded than the UAW. GEO, for example, has different priorities than the UAW. There's a different kind of work hazard when you're working in an auto factory, a steel mill, or an HVAC factory, losing fingers, working 20 hours a day, And then, of course, GEO's problems, which also exist. I'm not invalidating them, but I'm saying they have different concerns as far as that goes. We had a pretty positive relationship with them for a while. Brought them coffee while they were on strike. Tyler, you were there for that.
I have concerns about them and their concerns.
They're concerning.
Yes.
So we've done a little bit of outreach to them, but yeah, I would definitely say skilled trades would definitely be more of a viable field for us to expand to than perhaps GEO. I'm under exaggerating there. Any more questions? Let's see. I think that's everything. So I will let us now go into a little bit of an intermission so that we may get some water, go to the restroom. I don't know where the restroom is. I'm sure there's one on this floor. Okay, it's down the hall to the right. And of course, get some more water and feel free to get some more pasta. And if it's not warm, just close the thing because there's fire underneath it. Awesome. Do not play with the fire.
I'm going to get that too.
Any questions thus far? Yes, it's a little live stream. I don't know how many people are on here. Probably not that many. Oh, it's over here. It's over here. Hello, live stream.
There's somebody in there.
There's one person.
There's somebody in there.
Hello. Hi, Mom. Or Peter Sonsky. One of the two.
That's good. Here's some. Yes. Oh, it's a little bit of a little bit of everything. Just the coalition, of course. So thank you very much. I'll leave that to the introduction. About that. Yes, excellent. Oh, no, I know. Perfect time.
My mom, this is, you came my drinking water first before like you sent the hair up. My mom, she's like, I don't know, but she's like, school. It's like they put like this last year. Some of the and also they're trying to do 7 to 2. Yes. Eventually, I did have like a meeting or something like that, and like figure out that it was like we actually teaching us about.
That's a good idea. I know that a lot of those things are involved with the arts festival.
Yeah. Yeah, like grade 11.
So it's just, so it's still be good district. I mean, we
survived
survived on college campus.
Yeah, she was fine.
Quite well. So glad we actually got this from the room we had before was very low ceiling. I like this because it's a good example of classical architecture.
It's like the same like volume, but just taller and skinnier instead of.
Yeah, it's a great building. I love this. Chris, over here, our friends from Hillsdale. Chris used to work at the Bridgework. Always works in the summer. Works at Cato.
Really fun.
Yes.
So so basically, and by that, so we ended up in the woods. Any, honestly, it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
We found, and that's like, no, like, 6th and 9th, which was like the envelopes, when we opened up the 6th envelope, then the 9th clue was in the 6th.
Oh, that was just really a mistake.
Yeah, and so like, we were like, walking around for like 45 minutes, trying to figure out like what it was.
Because the skip, like,
That was funny.
Do you like the, were you part of the team presenting the sports presentation?
I was the dude in the egg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I presented the dude in the eye over on the guys that.
I don't think so. Was that guy in the egg? Not the guy in the egg, but the picture.
Yeah, it's like all those plastic.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
That's Kim's right.
Well, I was saying, we were talking.
I think his brother recognized his writing style.
Like outside, like we're all like, you know, like the trades, like this little trades outside, the UW. This dude, they was down this
I don't know. So that's all.
Well, the guy, someone is taking seats. I guess, yeah, she's going out to med school. Yeah. She's awesome. She's checking out. Yeah. I've known her for.
Hey, you say the K. This is something that.
Oh, yeah. There probably won't be that. Which is kind of insane. It's literally so big.
All right, folks, we're gonna take some pictures now. Nick, our wonderful photographer, has offered to take them. He's got all sorts of ideas that are better than the ideas I proposed. I don't understand lighting, but he does, and that's why we have him here. So, Nick, where would you like us to congregate for the first one? Outside, okay. Not outside the building, for the record, just outside the doors. We have our beautiful display of flags here that we were I'm not sure.
Getting rid of a lot of bad programs. One of them is one of those actions. One good idea. Also, yes, he said technical, third of the exact stars right now. So there's talking about this is very much agree with I think with our sport leaders, this award was coalition, was the entire Christmas was scratch. What do you guys think? It has my.
Catering guy said no more food, we only get what we ordered, but he did give us some more cups.
Because we are, we're not, we were at.
I asked.
It's not tomorrow, you guys.
Well, Florida State sent troops. Florida sent troops. Oklahoma sent troops. Alabama State, we allowed sending troops. He's gonna be, he's essentially Vermont's really against the politicians. Play a race. That's really just reflective.
Maybe we can make a hard
I think that's great. Right now, there's
We're working on that. We try to get. Yes, very.
Never actually publicly said it. I will always remember it. Like at that point, I would.
We gotta get the thing back on. We're gonna come back to order here pretty soon. We have more cups now for the water, but unfortunately we've been informed by the kitchen staff that they will not give us more cookies. So, boo, says Steve. We will, yes, Steve. We'll figure that out later, but. That's the old UAW spirit. I know there. Well, I knew that was going to happen. The cookies were less predictable. So we're going to come back to order now. Took some good pictures. Got some wonderful things done. Of course, got the next slide going on here. We have the intermission already. I would now like to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. John Quinn, who is former board member emeritus of the Michigan Democrats for Life. He wrote a great article in the Detroit Free Press, the News, Detroit News, about what it means to be pro-life and a Democrat in this modern era. He's a graduate of Michigan Law, 1972, so we love that. We love the Michigan Coaching Division. And he told me during the intermission that he was actually the former president of a union local back in the day. I think it was 221 something. And he served in that capacity for a few years, representing lots of people. I believe it was in the public sphere, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so we're very glad to have him here. He's going to be delivering a little address to us, and then he's going to be delivering a small Q&A for, people have questions. A lot of people don't picture Democrats in the modern era as being pro-life. The ARF has a very wide political berth. We have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have independents, we have some, I don't know, we once had a guy for like 10 minutes who was a socialist. He left very quickly, actually, but I don't know. What? It was the one at the first meeting in Kessler when he said he said we were insane, but that we followed some sort of dialectic, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then he never showed up again. But we try to be welcoming to everyone, but people in the modern era do not picture Democrats as a pro-life party. As we support a whole life movement. We would like to figure out how to build more bridges to support the pro-life movement. I'm a pro-life Democrat. We have certainly people here in the audience who are pro-life Republicans. And we would like to hear more about how we can do that, how we can expand that tent to be more inclusive, and how the Democratic Party can push for pro-life values. So please welcome to the rostrum, Mr. John Quinn.
It's okay if I put just put the screen down here?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Gabe, for that very kind introduction. I'm glad you just included the good stuff. At least I'm grateful for that. I apologize in advance. I just got a new phone. I think I put it on silent, but I don't even know how to work the darn thing yet. So if it goes off, I'm sorry. All right. So another thing I want to say right up front is I was reminded by what I've already seen that I'm going to be guilty of something called dualistic thinking at least one point in my talk. And maybe in the comments, someone can call me on it, and that would give me a chance to explain why I did it. But okay, thank you. I hope it's always a great pleasure for me to come back to this campus where way back in, oops, it's not up there anymore, but as you can see, I graduated from the law school in 1972. Is there anyone here besides me who was alive in 1972? Just not. So that is a while ago. But I gotta say, I really loved it. I hadn't planned to go to law school. I did, and it turned out to be the perfect cap or the perfect topping, the frosting on the cake for a liberal education. People talk about learning to think like a lawyer. I would just call it learning to think clearly. And so I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity, and I'm very grateful to you for giving me an opportunity to come back, although it's something I can do anytime I want. This is a special occasion. if I can get this darn thing to work enough so I can see my speech. All right. I've been asked to discuss the question, as Gabe said, why am I a pro-life Democrat? Now, one way to approach that question would just break it down into two questions. First, why am I pro-life? And then, why am I a Democrat? I think doing that would kind of miss the point, which I think Gabe has made pretty clear, that the purpose in asking me to come here was not to explain those two things in one at a time. It's to explain how you can be both pro-life and a Democrat in today's world, because it's generally thought that there's kind of an incongruity in that. And I hope by the time I finish, you will agree with me that the incongruity is actually a fallacy. That the real mystery is why so many people who identify as pro-life want nothing to do with the Democratic Party, and why there are so many Democrats who believe that the whole idea of the pro-life movement is antithetical to everything they hold dear, culturally and politically. In fact, you may even, I hope, come up thinking, how could anyone who's pro-life be a Republican? And especially in the age of Trump. So one more preliminary. As Gabe said, I am a member of Democrats for Life of America and the Michigan chapter, Michigan Democrats for Life. I'm not exactly an emeritus member of the board. The board's been dissolved, and so anyone who's ever been on it is a former member of the board. But I can't say that I speak for either organization. There's actually a lot of diversity of thought in both organizations, and so I'm sure I'll be saying some things that a lot of my fellow Democrats for Life disagree with. And I should mention that one hint of how we approach things is that our motto is pro-life for the whole life. In fact, our position is that if your only concern is for people who happen not to have been born yet, you're not really pro-life, because that's an important part of life. It's a wonderful miracle what goes on during gestation, but it's by no means, at least for most of us, all of life. But even though I'll be getting to that more, I'm going to start with the issue of abortion. I think mainly because that's where a lot of the energy, the rhetorical energy on pro-life issues happens to be centered and has been for several years now. But it's also because I think that it'll sort of lay the foundation for what I hope to discuss later about a broader concept of what it means to be pro-life. So I'll begin with a fundamental question. When does a new human life, that is, the life of an individual human, distinct from either of its parents, begin? Now, I think that should be a fairly non-controversial question, a non-controversial issue. It seems to me that once the genetic material of two human beings combine to make another human being who has a genome that's distinct from either of her parents, then that is a new human being. And that happens to happen very early in the process of gestation. Actually, it's unusual for a woman to know that she's pregnant by the time that happens. And so that would mean that any abortion is going to end up being, technically, at least in our point of view, a homicide. That is the killing of a human being. I hasten to add that not all homicides are crimes, but that's what it is. And that really gives rise to some pretty difficult and controversial questions. And so I'm going to just start with one such question that comes up quite often in debates about abortion. Consider the case of a pregnant woman who a few months into gestation learns that she's carrying a living fetus who has virtually no chance of surviving until natural birth. From what I've said so far, it seems pretty clear that if she decides to terminate the pregnancy before the fetus dies from natural causes and acts on that decision, before the fetus dies from natural causes and acts on that decision, she's committing a homicide. That is, the fetus being a human being, abortion necessarily ends the life of that human being. That's homicide. And the question, of course, is it a justified or excusable homicide? Now, a purely rational, utilitarian approach would be to say, well, okay, maybe it is a homicide, maybe it's not, but one way or the other, it is justifiable. After all, the fetus is, according to our beginning hypothesis, bound to die anyway before its birth. So the decision to abort the pregnancy affects only timing of its death. And there's no reason not to consider a prompt death preferable to a death that occurs somewhat later in gestation. So why should the woman bear the considerable emotional, financial, and physical burdens of continuing the pregnancy since the outcome is preordained anyway? But to inform our thinking on that, this is something if you go to law school, you'll hear professors doing this kind of thing. Give you another slightly different hypothetical and see if it changes the analysis. Let's say a woman learns shortly after giving birth that her newborn, although apparently perfectly healthy, suffers from a condition that makes it virtually certain that the child will die before growing to adulthood, or even maybe long before that, maybe within the first few years of life. Does that change the moral calculus? I mean, if we said it was okay in the case of a person who has not been born yet, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that word person because that's a legal term. As you know, you've probably heard corporations are persons too, but according to many courts, a human being who has not been born yet is not a person. But in any event, it is a human being who has died. But from a utilitarian point of view, you might say, well, this child is going to die anyway, and so we're only determining the timing of the death. And if it's handled gently, it may even provide a much more comfortable death than might have occurred if nature had been allowed to take its course. In fact, we might go even further and conclude that we shouldn't be making such a fuss about homicide in general. It's not as though the victim of a homicide was going to live forever, but for the homicide. I'm talking about physical life, of course, for those of you who are Christian or otherwise believe in an afterlife. I think you can see that things are starting to get a little problematic. Can we really come up with a principle on which we can decide that, well, it's okay to kill a human being who's going to die soon, at least if that human being hasn't been born yet. But after the human being is born, we start to feel a little queasy. And I think the queasiness is not just an emotional reaction, it comes from values that are really inherent in what it means to be part of a human society. So if the utilitarian approach doesn't work, how should society, more specifically the state, deal with the issue? Or for that matter, how should the state even deal with the issue of a woman who decides to terminate her pregnancy simply because it interferes with her lifestyle, with her plans, or with her family's plans. Now, one possible answer is that we could simply use the usual mechanisms of criminal procedure and the substantive criminal law. It's a homicide. We're going to use our usual procedures to determine, is it justified or not? Is it excusable? And if it's not justified or excusable, then simply subject the perpetrator or perpetrators to criminal sanctions. That is, after all, the way we deal with a lot of acts that we find morally repugnant. In fact, it seems to be our default approach to such acts. If we don't like something, it ought to be a crime, and we make it a crime. But I'd suggest that in many cases and categories of cases, that hasn't worked out very well. Even in what appear to be the obviously appropriate cases for the use of criminal procedure and sanctions, the record's not encouraging. For example, did you know that actually more than half of all homicides in the United States go unsolved? That is to say, the police are unable even to identify with reasonable certainty who done it. And of those that are solved, a significant portion are not prosecuted for lack of sufficient evidence. And of course, not every prosecution results in a conviction. And I'm sure you know that although we've tried for centuries to use criminal sanctions to control crimes like murder, rape, assault, battery, theft, and so on, all of those crimes continue to happen with distressing frequency. And no doubt you also know that criminal sanctions impose tremendous costs, not only on people who bear the sanction, but on the communities of which they are part. We often hear that no human is an island, or no man is an island. You can't really do something to one person without doing something very significant to several other people who are in some sort of relationship with that person. So, given that the use of criminal law to control human behavior is often more trouble than it's worth, I suggest that we should be much more selective about using it. One rule we should use in the selection process is that that conduct should generally not be subject to criminal sanctions in the absence of a clear and widespread consensus that the conduct is absolutely unacceptable in our society. Now, I should mention, in Michigan and some other states, another reason why you shouldn't do it is you can't. The Michigan Constitution no longer allows for criminalization of abortion. That's just a fact of life we have to live with. But I still want to go on and discuss the question of why it's not a good idea. Now, especially since Dobbs, the sort of consensus I described, it's very clear it doesn't exist. We do not have a consensus in our society that abortion in general, or even the particular sort of abortion I started out with my hypothetical, is absolutely unacceptable. Prop 3, which enacted what is now Article 1, Section 28 of the Michigan Constitution, which makes it impossible in Michigan to criminalize most abortion, really practically all abortions, was passed with something like 60% of the vote. I think it got more votes than anyone who was running for office that year, including Governor Whitmer, who most people agree won by almost a landslide. But she didn't win quite as much as Prop 3 did. And the same thing has happened in other states where the issue has arisen. Whenever there's been an effort to prevent the criminalization of abortion in the state, that effort has succeeded when it goes to the people. And when there's an effort to enact the criminalization in a state that didn't have it before, if it goes to the people, it fails. Okay, so in Michigan and many other states, we cannot treat abortion as a crime overall. And even if we could, there's reason to think it's not a good way to do it. It's just not going to succeed at reasonable cost. So does that mean that those of us who are concerned about the frequency of abortion, who are concerned about the lives of those who are not yet born, should just admit defeat and give up? No, it certainly does not. For one thing, there are many pro-life activists who do effective work outside the political process. I think Protect Life University of Michigan does a lot of work here outside the political process. Another organization that may have at one time been related to Protect Life, U of M, does the same thing in colleges and universities throughout the state. And they do seem to be pretty effective. But that's not the only option. Effective pro-life political action and policy making with pregnancy and birth start with the realization that the mother-child bond is one of the most powerful forces in human nature. Women generally do not have abortions because they hate their babies. Usually they do it because they can't find a realistic alternative. They don't need to be coerced to carry their children to term. They need to be empowered. And that's what we're about. Policies that empower pregnant women to give birth include things like paid parental leave for a substantial period before and after birth, high quality and affordable child care for parents who need it to stay in school or to work outside the home, excellent educational opportunities for all children and their parents, and excellent health care for everyone, especially expectant mothers, new mothers, and children. Policies like these respect, honor, and empower parents without regard to their marital status, economic status, or even how they became parents. They help parents nurture their children while continuing to develop their own talents and pursue their own ambitions. And you may have noticed, they sound an awful lot like progressive democratic policies. So yeah, I am a pro-life Democrat. I agree with our governor and the leader of our party in Michigan that we need to fight like hell. On the issue of reproductive rights, we need to fight to empower women to choose life for themselves and their children, confident that, given a real choice, the overwhelming majority will choose life. We need to struggle to secure respect for the dignity of all humans, those who have survived gestation no less than those who are still in the womb. Democrats work to enact and execute policies that protect, cherish, and honor every human life at all stages. Policies that not only aim to preserve life, but to enable all of us to thrive and live fulfilling, productive lives. That's why pro-life Democrats are willing to use our governor's phrase, to fight like hell, if anyone ever tries to turn Michigan into a death penalty state, which by the way, it has never been. The state of Michigan has never executed anyone. In fact, we were the first state in the English-speaking world to put in our constitution that death penalties is simply not permitted in the state of Michigan. That's why we work to preserve our planet and protect the natural environment that all living things need to survive. The fact is, we cannot protect the lives of our fellow humans who are still in the womb unless we take up the struggle to enhance the lives of all humans, especially those who face the challenge of bearing and raising children. Being pro-life, it's not about symbolism or about gamesmanship. It's about real life. It's about policies that respect, honor, and empower parents without regard to their marital status, economic status, or how they became parents. They help parents nurture their children while continuing to develop their own talents and pursue their own ambitions. That's what it means to be a pro-life Democrat. And we'll continue our support for our party, our governor, our president, our members of Congress, our state legislatures, as they continue the hard work of protecting, nurturing, and enhancing life at all stages. I think I used up a lot less time than was allotted, so I hope there will be questions, challenges, arguments.
You're right on time.
Hang it out.
You're right on time for the speech portion.
Okay, so we still have the questions.
Yeah, questions, yeah.
Okay. So are you going to chair this, or should I?
You can field the questions. I'm sure we'll have quite a few.
Okay. Questions, challenges, disagreements?
I was writing down a question, so I guess, I don't know if that counts as cheating, but regardless.
I wrote down this.
I guess we're both cheating, you know, science. Regardless, I've always wondered why there weren't more pro-life Dems, and especially considering the environmental issues, which I think are particularly important to young people. I know it's one of my biggest issues because I feel like this abortion topic, obviously it's very polarizing to some people, but I don't think it matters as much to me personally as, 2 billion people being displaced by environmental disasters and whatnot over the next century, et cetera. My question to you is, how big of a role do you think the topics of environmental policies or things of that nature that appeal to young people should play in the pro-life conversation?
I think they're central. I mean, if you're pro-life, you have to be in favor of conditions that allow people to survive and thrive. That's what it means to be pro-life. And so, yeah, that's central to what we believe in Democrats for Life.
You did define personhood, but I would like to hear how you define life.
Life, okay. That is even more of a question in which I lack expertise. So I'll take a stab at it anyway. Life is a condition that exists when some being, something, someone is capable of metabolism, of growth, of cell division, if it's a cellular life, of all those things that are identified with life. And that is true whenever you have, and that's true of all people who are in a womb, as well as people who are outside of it. It includes, by the way, people who have lost the ability to think for themselves, either because of age, disease, any reason like that. It includes people who appear to be of no value to society, at least no economic value to society. It even includes people who have committed horrendous crimes. Because as part of this idea that none of us is an island, is that our moral state is not an individual's moral state. It's a state of our whole race, the human race. And one thing that capital punishment does is it cuts off any opportunity for change and repentance. And you may think, well, what do I care whether some guy who's been in prison for 20 years finally realizes he did something terrible and feels bad about it? Well, the reason you can care is now we have in our human race one more person who has developed an active and intelligent conscience that apparently he or she lacked when they did something horrendous. So, yeah, that's why preserving life at all stages and giving people a chance, even if it seems they don't deserve the chance, it's important. In fact, maybe more important for the people we think don't deserve a chance, because they're the ones who need to change.
I'll add one more question to that. How do you think we, as university students supporting the condition that we are in on this type of campus or other campuses across the state, can learn to develop with a productive conversation, not only towards Republicans who are already sympathetic to the pro-life movement, but maybe not the social programs, to Democrats who are in favor of the social programs, but not in favor of fetal personhood.
Well, maybe it's kind of egotistical, but I think I just explained that. I don't think you have to be.
We'll invite you back.
You don't have to be pushing 80 years old to see the things that I saw. I'm sure that kind of argument can be quite persuasive with students also. You do it calmly. You do it not by calling them murderers and so on. You try to say, look, a lot of people say, well, I'm on the fence. I don't quite know. Well, if you're on the fence, eventually you got to get off the fence. You may have to get off the fence when you find out you're pregnant yourself, and it's a very inconvenient thing for you. You're going to have to get off the fence. If it's your wife, daughter, or anyone else who's close to you who faces that situation, you're going to have to get off the fence. Now, of course, it's certainly a decision to be made by the woman herself, but whatever decision she makes, she's going to need our support. And advice can't hurt as long as it's given in a loving way, a non-judgmental way, just laying forth the facts. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of what the people at Protect Life Michigan like to call apologetics, the art of persuasion. And it's something we can all do. In fact, especially if you go to law school. you happen to have a very good law school here that you could come on, there's got to be one.
I have another one on this. I was going to ask, 'cause I don't think this came up yet, in terms of, I guess, how foreign policy is related to life, or like the lack, I guess, of seeming to care about other interests outside of the American interests. What do you think U.S. policy should be looking to go towards in terms of that pro-life mindset?
Well, we want as much peace as we can get in the world, because I think there was an old saying back when I was young in the 60s, war is bad for living things, war is bad for children, war is bad. Apparently sometimes it's unavoidable, but we've made a lot of progress. Even though we've come up with much more grisly ways to wage war, we've also come up with better ways to control the violence. They're not nearly 100%, they're not as good as they should be. But we should be working for peace, because war is just deadly. That's the way it is, it's its nature. Now, I got a question. Did anyone catch me when I engaged in dualistic thinking during what I had to say? And you even got a hint of it before I got up here. Anybody notice it?
Josh, you're a theologian, like, did you pick it up?
You're
a theologian, like, you're a theologian.
Where you calling me out?
Remember, I seem to imply that if you're going to be politically active, your choices are to be a Democrat or a Republican in the United States. And we had plenty of slides before that show that those aren't your only alternatives. Nonetheless, I will say from my point of view, they are the realistic alternatives in the situation we actually live in. I mean, it's wonderful to come up with, like, the American Solidarity Party. I don't think there's anything I disagree with them on. In fact, at last year's Protect Life Michigan banquet, I and several other Democrats for Life shared a table with them. We have so much in common. But it happens, our system is designed in a way that's very hostile to multiple parties. In fact, the founders thought they didn't want any parties, except for Jefferson. He wanted a party, but once you have one party, you better have at least two, because if not, you end up with the Soviet Union or a one-party system, which doesn't seem to work out very well either. But given the way we're structured, now even parliamentary systems are getting more and more to be two-party systems. There aren't, or maybe three parties in coalition. There are some parliamentary systems, like for example, in Israel, they have multiple parties that are all over the place. But places like France, England, the classic parliamentary systems, you generally end up with two parties, maybe a third party that displaces one of the parties, and then you got another new two-party system. That may be unfortunate, but it's a fact of life. And so from my point of view, if you want to have an impact sometime within the next, say, half a century, you're better off to work within the two-party system. It's just a pragmatic thing.
So one thing that I feel like I've seen, at least just from my personal standpoint, is that most people I come across when it comes to this issue seem to have kind of held that for a very long time, or even their whole life. So I was wondering, as a pro-life Democrat, have you always been a pro-life Democrat? Or do you have any experiences that changed your mind and led to that? And if not, do you know anybody that has substantially changed their mind on the issue?
Yes, I'm someone who's changed my mind. And I've had experiences, people in my family have had experiences that helped to change my mind. Someone who's very close to me as a teenager was a victim of a very violent rape. And I had the honor of accompanying her to the emergency room. And as the treating physician was describing her what they were going to do and why they were doing it, her first comment was, okay, but if it turns out I'm pregnant, I want to make sure you don't kill the baby. That was, to me, an amazing, courageous thing to do. And so that was part of the, I think by that time, I was pro-life, but that really solidified it. So, yeah. Now, but of course, we cannot enforce that kind of moral heroism. It's beautiful when it happens, but to say that if she had said the opposite, that she should go to jail, no, that's nonsense. But we should do everything we can if she does choose life, and it turns out that she is pregnant. Well, then we have to support her in every way we can, even if she hadn't been raped. I mean, it's just. You can't, as I said, you can't punish one human being without punishing at least one other human being with euthanasia. That's it.
No.
You go. Okay. So I really like the talk, first of all, and it was very perspective. The statement about the politics, I do agree with. I think you have to be feasible and pragmatic with regard to your approach for politics. But one of the things that actually draws me to the ARF is the fact that it attempts to work with both parties to affect whichever one is more willing towards a change that happens to help everybody, regardless of the way that happens. So do you think that it's feasible to work within the two-party system without yourself adopting a party line? I mean, I vote independently in elections and have voted for Democrats and Republicans on the same ticket. So is that the kind of thing that's possible or effective?
It's possible if you're a Democrat. It's really hard to do if you're a Republican nowadays, frankly. I mean, when you get something done I mean, it is actually the case in the House of Representatives that they will kick you out of the caucus or take away your speakership if you dare to cooperate with Democrats. So, yeah, if you want to support a major party that tries to work across the aisle, tries to find common interest. A good example right now is the immigration bill, the immigration reform bill. There are things in there that I really don't like, for example, what it does to asylum. And I don't think the president likes it either. I don't think the Democratic senators who voted for it like it. but it's dead on arrival in the House. Not necessarily because they don't like his provisions, they don't want to give a Democratic president a victory so soon before an election. That's nonsense. I mean, that's putting tactics over strategy, over substance. And so, yeah, I would say if you want to be able to accomplish something on a bipartisan basis, I suppose you could be someone like Senator Romney, but he's pretty much powerless within his party now. Or you can be a Democrat. Or you could be someone like Bernie Sanders, who caucuses with the Democrats.
Is it ethical to eat meat?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm one of the people who didn't have any meat laws because I prefer not to eat meat. I certainly am not going to condemn anyone who disagrees with me. But yeah, I guess, all right, there's a difference between moralism and morality. The difference is morality tells me what I should do. Moralism tells me what other people should do. I try to concentrate on the morality, and that means almost without exception, I don't eat meat. I do make an exception for Thanksgiving, just because I'm also a traditionalist. So I'll have a little piece, but yeah.
So I know this is probably going to be a little awkward, but one thing I've noticed is that you and I think everybody else in the room is a man except me, is a man, when abortion is typically seen as a women's issue. So do you find a lot of women pro-life Democrats in your other circles? And then what would you do to, get more women involved, at least for outreach purposes?
Well, I can tell you the president of Michigan Democrats for Life is a woman. The executive director of Democrats for Life of America is a woman. There are several other women who hold positions of responsibility in Democrats for Life. And yeah, I have to admit, when I saw the picture of last year, I said, wow, they're all white guys. Okay, I live in Detroit, so that's a bit of a shocker for me. But still, it is problematic in a pluralistic society. And so I think, well, there are groups that are overwhelmingly female, as far as I know, that are pro-life. One I mentioned, Protect Life Michigan. There are men who are active, young men who are active to Protect Life Michigan. But it's pretty much a female-run organization, which I think is great. So, yeah. And I think, in a way, the issue is closer to women. I mentioned that the strongest force in human life is the mother-child bond. And women are much more intimately familiar with that than I am. I mean, I've learned a lot. I've fathered 5 or 6 children, but that's nothing like mothering 6 children. I mean, frankly, I'm the assistant parent. And, it's just fine that way because she does a better job than I do. But the reason she does a better job is because of that bond. And it doesn't start at birth. Yeah, from what I've observed, it starts well before birth. It definitely is a place, and it should be a place of leadership.
Please feel free to stop me if this is an appropriate question, but what's your stance on Plan B or similar contraceptives that are used after the fact?
I don't have, again, that is, at this point, it's a moral question, not a policy question, pretty much. And I prefer to engage in moral questions, in moral decisions, not moralistic decisions. It's an issue I will never have to face, and so I'll leave it to people who do have to face it, whether ejaculation. Here's my plan. I guess the problem is, okay, I think it's fair to say that the process that creates no human being doesn't happen instantly at the point of ejaculation. Okay, so it's not like you have a human at that point. It's just a little hard to tell how long after that you have a human. And plan some of those the afterwards kind of so-called contraceptions may end up taking human life, and I find that problematic.
I don't want to get too off the topic of your speech, however.
We've already done that.
If you do believe your moral correctness system is correct for society, why wouldn't you want to enforce it on others?
Well, because if I force it on others, it's not like they are in a position to make the moral decision themselves. And I happen to be a Christian myself, and so it's against my religion to force it on others. I mean, the founder of my religion said, "Judge not, lest you be judged." That was pretty central to his mission. And so, I mean, obviously, some things you have to demand that others do it. And for example, when somebody commits murder, yeah, they need to be dealt with often in a very harsh way. But they need to be dealt with in a way that gives them a chance to grow beyond that terrible thing they've done. Not something that just says, okay, it's all over for you. That's not acceptable.
Okay, we're gonna have the questioning off there unless anyone else has an absolutely burning question.
Okay, I'll ask that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming here.
I guess I didn't bring mine up.
Wait a second, I gotta turn back on the projector. The laptop.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Going up? Alex, I think I need your sage advice. Oh, there we go, I got it, as soon as I asked for it. Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, as the good book says. I would now like to welcome to the rostrum our good friend, Johnny. Johnny, I'm not sure if you printed it out, but if you...
I have a speech.
You can share it with me and I can put it up on the computer to make it a little easier to read.
I think you shared it with me.
Oh, okay. I'll bring it up then. So Johnny recently was elected to CSG as an engineering representative at our most recent elections. It was a surprisingly large margin too. We were shocked kind of. I remember we were talking about it the other day. So we're very happy to have him. He has been involved in the ARF now for the past 2 years. He was at last year's convention as well. And he initially ran on our first ticket for the IU last year. And he didn't win that seat, but he won this one by quite a bit. So we're very happy that he stuck around. And first you don't succeed, try again. So I'll now welcome up Johnny Dunn. Should have gotten the speech up before that.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Dunn, and I'm a sophomore here at U of M. I'd like to deliver a few brief thoughts on staying true to one's values in a hostile environment. As the ARF heads forward into an increasingly hostile two-party state, we have been committed to avoid falling into establishment positions in student government, but rather to uphold our views of how, regardless of how polarized student politics have become. As a representative on the Assembly of CSG, I face challenges when it comes to holding views that are unpopular on the Assembly on this campus. Among the ARF, we share a common foundational value to love our country and to love all things that makes our people and our citizens live comfortable lives. However, there's a large portion of the Assembly who seems to advocate for resolutions that directly oppose this mission. As you have heard, there's recently a push to pass a resolution that would use school security system to aid women to get abortions. While the majority of our campus would be in support of a resolution like this, I must uphold our shared beliefs to oppose this resolution. And thankfully, we had great success. We worked together with other pro-life student organizations to bring pro-life activists to come speak against this resolution. And under the pressure of many speakers, CSG voted to suspend this resolution indefinitely. So I would say that that is a great success. While it may seem impossible to create change in a politically hostile environment, such as CSG, our actions have shown to be useful, and I'm very thankful to our ARF members who have been active in CSG. It allows our beliefs to be held up and not just disregarded by our government. Regardless of how different of our differences in belief, we have shown to have the ability to cross the divide with our fellow CSU representatives and be able to work on some amazing pro-worker and pro-student policies that can help our students flourish in such an expensive time of their life. We've been working together to pass a resolution that would support the formation of an RA union. This resolution would advocate for the rights of those students who choose to serve the residence hall so that they would have a fulfilling and worthwhile employment alongside their education. I hope that the ARF would pass this resolution and aid in the creation of future resolutions that would aid in the lifestyle of our student body. As shown by this action in CSG, it can be seen that the ARF has a real impact on our government. I hope that this would inspire each of you to support, advocate, and hopefully run for different aspects of CSG and not just treat our student government as a lost cause. If student government is something you'd be interested in, I will support you and aid you in your campaign. If you want to discuss strategy or anything, feel free to talk to me, Tyler, or Gabe. I'm sure a lot of other people would be more than willing to help you, or Patrick, the head of our party. But I thank you for listening to my speech, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this convention. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Really enjoyed your speech. As someone who's also in CSG, I would like to add another account of something that happened right before winter break, I believe, before this semester, and this shows how CSG is terribly divided and needlessly injects and tries to make it have social issues and things that otherwise wouldn't be. An example of this was the pinball piece resolution that was attempted to get shut down last semester. So as you know, pinball piece is going to be, they're looking at demolishing it and building a high-rise building. They have to take every pinball piece so they can fit the smart columns in the space for the parking garage. And CSG, we worked on a resolution that we were going to take to City Council to let them know that maybe that's not such a great idea for both the economy of Central Campus and, of course, for student life.
Yeah.
But one person backed up by a couple of friends actually trying to shoot down the resolution, and it got dragged on for maybe about half an hour of just a discussion that, while it was good to have, it was honestly something that could have been better avoided if people then try to inject certain issues into CSG. Now, this person was trying to go the route of how it will help with diversity and apparently would help with like affordable housing and even though the high rise that they're building.
It would be luxury.
Exactly. It's going to be a luxury high rise. It's going to be, say, tier 611, Village, Harbor Blue. And that discussion carried on for half an hour. Whereas if that person had more, or if the CSG just had a different attitude about things, then maybe not like this words, but like, yeah, it was a discussion that honestly wasn't necessary.
And the worst part of all was that when we were informing that member of CSG that in reality this would not create any equity or diversity or whatever, that person took it as like, you know, as an insult to the police. And later on in the meeting, we had people saying like, oh, we have to be respectful to other people's opinions in this assembly. I'm like, what? Are you serious? Like, I can't believe it. Just because we're literally informing that person, it hurts their feelings.
Yeah, I mean,
It's unbelievable. So we have to change this. And if I may add one thing that happened very recently. As you may currently know, the current president of Central Student Government, Leon Hurley, whose government can be described best as keeping the ship afloat. And I say that very, very, like, without any, I mean, I don't care at this point because I'm done. I'm done, like, waiting and trying to help, and we're not wanting any help. So, one thing that happened very recently was, especially with the Pinball Pete's resolution, we were worried that there was going to be a veto on her. And unfortunately, I believe if she got the veto, we wouldn't have gotten the votes to override that. I heard that from someone else. I didn't come up with it. Now, when I asked some people in a committee, which is specifically designated as a committee that perfects resolutions, make sure that everything is, you know, fine with the resolution, etc. I asked the question, have you guys heard of any incoming vetoes from here? And apparently, this word went to Her Majesty the President, and the next meeting, and not community concerns and matters arising, or whatever it's called, that meeting, she single-handedly, like, looks at me straight into my eyes, and starts saying, like, if anyone wants to start a rumor, like, looking straight at me, saying that, oh, because, like, you started a rumor about me, like, trying to make a veto, etc. Like, no one can do that, like, because that's unbelievable, that's extremely disrespectful, very unproductive. I'm sorry, since when are we not allowed to speculate on what the president and the executive cabinet is going to do, especially as we are the legislative branch? That is unacceptable, it's tyrannical, she has to go. And her future party has to go.
I agree. Another thing I noticed is that she mentioned something about how if our personal beliefs get in the way of us being good governors, or like being good representatives, then we should change our ways. But that is literally how you be a representative. You bring your beliefs, you get elected with your beliefs, and you advocate for those beliefs. And to do otherwise, to just follow what Mira wants is just completely.
That's why she's not the president, because she didn't even come in with beliefs.
I think we will move on now. We're actually over the wonderful section, now, which will be the fourth section. So we're going to be focusing on that. I think we still want to be a little bit ahead of time. We're talking about CSG stuff afterwards. So thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
No. Alex, I hope you, where's Alex?
I'm
right
right
here,
here.
right there.
Yes, in front of me. Scared me. Now, we have an awards presentation, actually, believe it or not. Let's see if I can find the slides. Here we go. Slide back up here. Much easier this time. So, obviously, awards and recognitions. So, throughout this year, we have done a lot of things. We've engaged in a lot of different efforts across the state. We've traveled all across the state. We're going to travel even farther soon, actually. More on that maybe at next week's meeting, so you have to come by and see what happens in part 2. A lot of people have contributed greatly to the ARF, and I will do this in kind of numerical order. So this person has been really great in connecting the ARF to outside organizations. This individual showed outstanding dedication in getting us to work with outside organizations and promoting us in different spheres and different people we've never talked to before. I would like to give and present our first award to one of our new Rackham representatives, Aaron Neely, who connected us
I'm sorry, it's a bit difficult to hear over the applause. Can you repeat that?
I was thanking you for connecting us to Peter Sonsky, to the American Solidarity Party. We actually do have a pen too. Yes. Okay, we do have a pen. We have a marker. Oh gosh. Well, I will have you sign your name on there, and then we'll sign it, of course, as well. I think the tables back there might be a little bit better, but we also have, you have a little thing to sign on? Yeah, sign on the back of this. So I will say a little bit more about that. Our first big event of the year was having Peter Sonsky here as the presidential candidate. He was really great to talk to. He was very intelligent, very engaging. I hope to have him by again before the election. I hope that he will be here for, I hope he'll be here on the ballot in Michigan. If not, I know he's going to be on the ballot in Indiana. So I think so. Howard, is that right? Indiana? Indiana's the next target. So I will remember that. And in that same vein, as I said, I was doing that before. I would like to thank someone who contributed generously to having our event hosted, who in a roundabout way made this event possible by filling the hole in our budget, as we thought we would have to fund the Sonsky event ourselves. I would like to thank our special guest and man sitting in the back over there, Dr. Howard Bromberg from the law school, for his generous contribution to the Sonsky event and filling that hole in our budget to make so many of our future projects possible. Thank you very much, Dr. Bromberg. We have one of these awards to present to you. We thought there was going to be a table up here. We honestly did.
Set this plan, but it didn't happen.
Can I just say
There
what?
is a windowsill over on that side.
Thank you. And you want to say any words?
Yeah, I just want to say what a pleasure it was working with the ARF, meeting several of you in the process. And I'm looking forward to more collaboration.
Thank you very much. So while Gabe takes care of that,
You have to sign yours now.
yes, I'd like to present an award because we did do some planning for this, and so we're going to switch off who's presenting everything a little bit. The person receiving this award is working studiously for the organization of every event we have, has not missed one, has produced amazing media for our organization, continues to do so, and is as of yet looking over the picture they just took of me. Nick, would you come and receive your award? The next award, this member is a new member of our organization, but has shown very, very quick uptake and very quick acquisition to building a firm community surrounding the ARF. We believe we are so excited to watch as this person grows their ability to have influence and affect United States politics on a broader level, both countrywide, within their local communities, and abroad in the many different parts that they are now directing. Joshua, please come up and receive your award. Of course, we'd like to say a few words. You can.
Thank you.
Welcome. Let's see, how many? You put them over there, sign them over there at the corner. I thought we were gonna have a table up here. Let's see, and of course, we got two more. One of our awards goes to a steadfast member of the ARF. He has been a member for years now. He was here since nearly the beginning. His passion for conservation knows no bounds, and he has worked studiously to make sure that on the far side of Detroit, that all across the state, we said from C to Shining Sea earlier, but all the way from Grosse Pointe to Grand Rapids, we have ARF chapters too. I'd like to present this award to Steve, who has studiously been making sure we've actually updated on TikTok. You know, one of the videos got like 100,000 views, so I don't even know how that works. So thank you very much, Steve.
I mean, I mostly work with an organization called Detroit Bloom that my aunt actually happens to run. They have a lot of events that like will have thousands of people show up to it. And I also work with our locally horticulture in Grosse Pointe. So like this year we did a shopping area. We just like instead of grass, we just turned it into a native garden area. So it's just a lot of things that help out that people can do instead of like the just stop oil people in Britain that just glue themselves to cement. So,
what? Where's Detroit Bloom?
It's just off Ultra Avenue. It's like it's like right next to Grosse Pointe, and it's just like on the edge of Detroit, near the east side. You can look it up at that website. Thank you.
Just go over there and then we'll sign the paperwork done. And our last award is in relation to some of the other political activism we've done on campus. We have been able to do so much. We have representatives in the central student government. We have influence and power over what passes and what doesn't passes. We scored that massive upset victory a few weeks ago that was unprecedented, I believe, in the history of CSG. Victory for life, a victory for all students on this campus, and somebody who's worked hard to make sure that we stay in the headlines of CSG, as it were. I'd like to thank our LSA representative, Patrick Sendro Arceo, and I pronounced your name, I butchered it, but thank you very much.
Just a few words. I think this is the right moment. So, as I said before, earlier in this great conference, we are in the works of a coalition between a former rival, well, a faction of it, but a faction that does not want a ship staying afloat. We want a ship that is sailing. Currently, the government, as I explained before, CSG finds itself not sailing anywhere, not doing anything revolutionary, nothing new. So, with this being in mind, we have decided to form this new coalition with what used to be Forward Together, a faction of theirs, and we have very good things being planned as of right now. I can tell you right now that the coalition will be named United for Michigan, and it's going to encompass two parties, New Ideas and the Maize and Blue Union, which is our own. The presidential candidate, I'm not allowed to say right now, as much as I would love to, but I will say that the vice presidential candidate will be a member of MBU, the Maize and Blue Union, so one of our own. I'm not allowed to say that one either yet, because currently, as we're speaking, the executive cabinet is forming their own party and trying to have the continuation of not having the ship sink, and we don't want that, and we want to basically catch them by surprise. So hopefully, with that being said, we will be able to have new things going on for student government, make it way more impactful on students' lives, because as it currently is, not many people even know about it, which is unfortunate. So hopefully, with your guys' continued support, just like we won last year when no one thought we were going to win, we're going to win this time, and we're going to take over the entire government.
Once again, I'd like to extend our deepest gratitude to those who have worked so hard on behalf of this organization, to those who have expanded our reach from sea to shining sea, those who have connected us to national politics, presidential candidates, to local politics, to conservation. We truly have had a community-wide and I dare say nationwide impact in some of our efforts over this past year. I'm so grateful to call myself the chairman of this organization when I know that there are so many people here that could probably do the job a little bit better than I could. What we've seen through this year, and this is only, Stefan, our third year, this is getting into our fourth year. We're getting into our fourth year. It's January of our fourth year of this organization existing. And to already have such wonderful members who wholeheartedly deserve such accolades really humbles me when I know what kind of people we've attracted to this organization. Such people of determination, dedication, such people with the fire to go on in the face of what seems like insurmountable opposition and truly push for change in this society. So I would just like to extend my firm thanks once again to people who I granted those awards. I wrote this joke on the bottom. I am somewhat of a protectionist, as you know, being a Midwesterner. So I just wrote down, I'm sure somebody has already said this, but it's a little joke down there. International trade is an international failure. I firmly believe that to be the case. And I think that if you disagree with me, we'll go through a ride through Detroit or Pontiac, and I will show you some examples of what international trade has brought to the Midwest, its people, and its culture. Let me get my speech up. I printed it out, but I think it'll be easier to read off of this. Where is it? It's down here. I got it. So one of the things that troubled me when I first founded this organization, was political polarization, was the inability of friends, families, and even neighbors to sit down with each other and have a realistic conversation about what needed to be done in these United States if we were to survive the next decade. During the coronavirus pandemic, we saw people go at each other's throats. We saw families refuse to have Thanksgiving with each other due to politics. We saw isolation. We saw desolation. And we saw political movements exploit division to create headlines and to sacrifice the unity of the American people for political aims. There comes a turning point in a society when you are to decide whether you are to progress towards a brighter future or if you shall collapse into chaos, infighting, and turmoil. Being at a university, I am reminded constantly that we are surrounded by young leaders. They herald the arrival of a new epoch. Today, as we gather under this convention for the American Revival Front, we find ourselves standing at the precipice of such a moment, of such a juncture. I think we can collectively feel it in our bones, in our minds, and in our hearts, that the current situation is not tenable, that something has to give. Things feel tense politically. Things make us nervous. Every headline that we hear about a standoff, about the federal government versus the states, about the elections, about the Supreme Court, makes us go to the edge of our seats and wonder if this will be the final stumbling block of the republic. I don't think that's true. I don't think that has to be true. If we idly stand by and accept that destruction is inevitable, destruction will be inevitable. If we think it too much, it threatens to come into reality. But I believe that we can go towards a new trajectory, restore the trajectory of our great nation. As we embark upon such a journey, it is essential to acknowledge this bleak landscape. But we must not dwell upon it. We must not dwell upon the things that are going wrong, but rather focus on maximizing the things that we can do right. I've had the fortune of talking to many people at this university about social issues, and the ARF is mostly united on social issues. Economic issues, similarly. The most common political opinion we are told is the parenthetical socially liberal and economically conservative. Now, this is kind of anathema to my ideas. I've always been a church-going Christian, and I've always believed that the poor deserve to live even in a capitalist economy. I've always believed that the poor deserve jobs, healthcare, food, the essentials to life. But classical liberalism of Adam Smith and things like that, I don't think it's applicable today. This political term has so populated our vocabulary for so long, but what does it mean? What are its practicable implications? To some, it is the Lockean theory of free market capitalism, the idea that has so long been promoted by those calling themselves conservatives, but has consistently wrought regressive progress, to coin a phrase. But to others, liberalism stems from a reform-minded ideology of William E. Gladstone. None of you know who that is. I barely know who that is. If any of you knows who that is, you know more English politics than I do.
Prime Minister.
Yep, Prime Minister, and that's pretty much all I know about him. But he changed the definition of liberalism in the UK to be more of a welfare state and to promote social liberalism. Now, social liberalism back then was nothing like it was today. Liberalism back then just meant letting Irish people vote. And that actually was what it was back then. You think I'm joking, but no, he actually did help enfranchise the Irish people.
And Queen Victoria hated him.
Yes, that's a story for a different time. Don't get me started. But what we are at today is what I would call neoliberalism. Neoliberalism, to me, is an insidious ideology beyond nation, an internationalist ideology of unfettered capitalism, motionlessness. This ideology, in many conservatives' minds, unfortunately, has replaced God with the GDP. You hear people now, especially in the Republican Party, talking about the GDP, the GDP, the GDP. You heard new, quote unquote, new Democrats like Bill Clinton talking about the GDP, the GDP, the GDP. But not the wealth gap, not inflation, not rising prices, not rising divorce rates, not rising homelessness, but how much wealth is in the country. Just don't talk about how unequally it is divided. Our society has substituted religion and social life with work. It has substituted prayer, reflection, and social time with mindless consumption, whether that be on Amazon or on our phones. Why is this? I challenge anyone who says that this ideology is necessary for progress. This ideology, to me, is more of an imminent threat than communism was during the Cold War. For while the American communist movement has always been a fringe movement populated by spies and others receiving orders from Moscow or Beijing, neoliberalism is here. It dominates the political landscape on both parties. Like communism, it's not very pro-religion. It's an internationalist ideology that wants to abolish the nation, tradition, culture. And I don't say these things as someone who's a cultural reactionary. We have to acknowledge there are cultures in the United States that are naturally inherently progressive. But they threaten to all be subsumed by this one big kind of ball of consumption. I think we all can remember in media how oversimplified, kids' cartoons can make these things sometimes, or how they will form this kind of multicultural blob. But I think that part of the beauty of the United States is recognizing that there are different cultures that populate our great landscape, that all have something to value, that all have something valuable and all deserve to be respected. But they don't deserve to be just kind of all melded together. It's our duty as American citizens to recognize the internal and nearly invisible challenge of neoliberalism and to excise it from the American political landscape. It's the policies that put the American people and their sufferings and their struggles top of the list. That's what we need to do. We need to recognize these issues that the American public is having. We need to recognize that homelessness, that underemployment, that unemployment, that diseases of despair like drug addiction and suicide are impacting our society so greatly. This unbridled neoliberalism has corroded our civil society and corrupted our sense of purpose. It's deracinated our communities, eroded our international position, transformed our economy and way of life beyond recognition. I remember reading a statistic recently from the Economic Policy Institute. So there's a source for everyone who's looking it up. The Economic Policy Institute wrote a paper about NAFTA. NAFTA cost us hundreds of thousands of jobs, and more than half of these jobs were paying more than $70,000 a year. $70,000 a year in 90s money, not $70,000 a year in the worthless crap we have today. It was a lot of money back then. It was enough to feed a family. It was enough to put someone through college. And I remember a few years ago, I was fortunate enough as a high school student to be invited to the Detroit Economic Club. I got to meet with the Trade Minister of Mexico. And he excoriated NAFTA for destroying the farm jobs in northern Mexico and causing the problem of illegal immigration that we saw persist until today. But to quote someone who is perhaps a little bit more relatable, C.S. Lewis once observed, "If you're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the fork and finding the right road." My friends, I believe the time has come for our generation to take the mantle, to turn the ship around, and to find the right road of progress. Now, it is impossible, and I'm not going to tell you that we can turn back the hands of time, but it's important to progress in another direction, to progress not down the path of consumerism, but the path of compassion, not the path of division, but the path of unity, and not the path of hatred for our past, but love and recognition of a different time and place. As we struggle, we are not facing the shackles of gold as those confronted by a similar American movement in the late 1900s. These invisible chains that constrain our aspirations, and the everyday American is stifled and their dreams crushed. Successful marriages have declined. Marriage rates altogether have actually declined. Somebody once remarked to me recently that the divorce rate had fallen from 50% to the mid-40s. But that was only because the marriage rate in the first place had fallen so precipitously. Harmful pathologies, the inability to provide for a family on a single income, the dignity of labor, they are all under assault by our current economic system. The time has come for liberation from these constraints and a united endeavor to forge a path, a new opportunity. The inherent birthright of every American is a job, is opportunity, is the ability to live without fear of homelessness, without starvation, without dying due to lack of access to health care. As the previous speaker, Mr. Quinn, mentioned, we need to give mothers the opportunity to choose life. Something like 80% of all women in the United States who seek an abortion live in a poor economic condition. Many more ascribe the reason they got an abortion to poor economic situations. And I ask myself, is that really a choice? Does that woman really have a choice if she's saying that she lives in poverty and that child would be doomed to poverty as well? That's why I believe it is incumbent upon us to build a robust social safety net that will provide to all American citizens. Somebody once asked me about the sign next to the Statue of Liberty. As you know, many of you know, it says, "Give us your tired, poor, and sick yearning to be free." I say that we might, let's put an asterisk on that until we actually have the conditions to give everyone that life they deserve. Is it disingenuous to tell people to come here when all that we have to offer them is more economic hardship? I went to Detroit a while ago, and my family gives money to an organization called Cass Community, which is a beautiful organization that provides for the homeless. You see encampments of homeless people. You see people who should be receiving mental health help living on the streets. You see houses condemned by the dozens. You see neighborhoods bought up by international conglomerates like BlackRock that have been enabled by, quite frankly, the Bush administration, but we'll get into that in a different lecture, to make these kind of economic moves. And we see that we don't have as much opportunity as we would like to think. 1/5 of the people in this country live in a situation where they cannot find a job that lifts them above the poverty line. 22.4% of our nation lives below the poverty line. And that is at the same time that we only have something like 4% unemployment, which means the vast majority of these people are employed, but they can still not be lifted above the poverty line. And now we're being told that this is fine. We're being told to ignore it. We're being told to focus on whatever spectacle is going on in the news. We're being forced to focus on a trial of a former president when 22% of the country lives in poverty. We're being forced to think about these minor issues in the grand scheme of things, because if we stop looking at that, we might look around us and realize we outnumber them. The people who work, 22% outnumbers 1/2 of 1% last time I checked. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on how we can make progress within the current system. And I believe that we can. The ARF is a heterogeneous organization. We have people here from all different political stripes and shades. But we're united by this idea that the American people must be reunited, that capitalism is flawed, but replacing it with communism is idiocy. We need a productive class of national producers, of small businessmen, of labor unions, of co-ops that can effectively orchestrate the economy so people don't die on the streets. We're united by this desire to see the people of our country free again, not only literally, but from the economic bonds themselves. I will paraphrase my favorite presidential candidates of the entire history of the United States, William Jennings Bryan, who ended his famous Cross of Gold speech by saying, "You shall not press down this brow upon the brow of this nation a crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind on a cross of gold." And we still live in those times, although he was talking about the gold standard. What we have now is what gold represents, is of greed, is of pride, is of envy, is of consumerism, is of this relentless dedication to a system that only serves a tiny portion of the population. His words have never rung more true than they do today. I thank you all so much for coming here today. Your dedication means a lot to me. After this, we'll have all sorts of great conversations about what more we can do. But I will end by paraphrasing the quote. "You shall not press down upon the brow of our nation this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind on the cross of internationalism." Thank you. Have a nice day. And with that, I will officially adjourn this national convention. Don't forget your awards, they're here. All of the exception of Patrick's award. Over here. Sign one? Yes, Patrick's. Yes.
Yeah, no, this is true. I mean, it's very hard to get our head around. Are very passionate about something. No, I understand. Myself, but at the same time, I understand that don't agree with, I'm passionate about an issue, and I can only consult the person and my self, them, my understanding, I agree. And I would hope not, but yeah. Yeah, it was great. I didn't know how long this was going. I'm so glad you did.
Those are